everybody. I'd like to welcome you on my podcast, Renew Motherhood. And this is a wonderful topic. My episode is about what if childhood was punishment free? And for this topic, I'm so grateful to have a wonderful guest here on my show. It's Rebecca Woulfe. I'd like to welcome you, Rebecca. Please, I hand it over to you. Introduce yourself, please.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Blanka. It's such a pleasure to be here today and to be able to share some ideas with you and your listeners. My name is Rebecca Woulfe, and I am an author of a book, The Gift of a Punishment-Free Childhood, and then I also support parents through coaching and workshops. So again, this is just such a great opportunity for you and me to have a great conversation about some of these ideas.
Yes, and it's a wonderful idea because being a mother of myself, of 4 children, like you are, so to not punish, to really get into engagement with your children without punishment seems to be a stretch. I know with my first one, it was a stretch, but yes, if you can step back from this, I think there lies a wonderful opportunity. And I'd just like to get into this. You encourage parents to bring up their children without punishment.
Mhm.
This can be provocative food for thought. What led you to this attitude yourself?
Yeah, so I'll share that really what led me to this was looking around at the world, at what was happening, and recognizing that some of the violent acts and in the United States, in Colorado, we had one of the first horrific school shootings, the Columbine shooting. And those two young men, right, and think about how young they were and how much potential. And yet they went in and, they had the school shooting because they wanted to punish their classmates, right? They wanted to punish them for picking on them, for bullying them. And just thinking that through, why is that the first thing that we think of, right? And it's because that's how we grow up, right? Children learn what they live, and what in most families, right, it is do what I say or you'll be punished, right?
Right.
And if you do something that I don't like, I'm going to punish you. And so we take that into adulthood. And so I just thought to myself, the only way that we're going to change this, change our world, is if we start changing the way that we parent. And if we bring up our children in a way where they learn other solutions, right? Where they learn how to handle conflict in other ways, where they realize that making mistakes is part of being human and not something that should be punished. So that was
That's,
really my motivation.
that's so
Was
wonderful.
yeah.
Because you just mentioned two ways. The one way is really to be a role model for them,
Mm-hmm.
to really say, okay, I don't punish you. You don't need to punish anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And the second really is to, yes, go deeper with this. What will happen if we won't punish anymore? To open up the minds and to follow a new path for our society, actually. And sometimes I think it's a little stretch for us to figure out how can we do without this? Because
Right.
there are so many people who are thinking, okay, it's the same, like they have to know where the boundaries are, and they have to know if they put their hand on a uh I don't know how to say it.
Just
A
don't
fire,
talk. Yeah.
they will be burned, and it's normal. So it's like a boundary. You said you make a punishment, and it's hurting them, so they know that they can't go this way. But it's different.
It is different. It absolutely is. And I felt a little guilty initially like, oh my gosh, I'm running a social experiment on my own children, right? What if this doesn't work, right? What if they do grow up and I find them running the streets as teenagers and being rude and awful, right? I mean, I was a little nervous about starting this and doing it. But in reality, right, it's really the opposite is what occurred. These, my children they're young adults now, and they're thoughtful. They're, comfortable with people, with adults. They have good values. I'll share a story. I was talking to someone about this topic, and they said, yes, but it was a podcast. Your child wouldn't have any moral compass. And what was so funny is that my daughter listened to that
Yeah.
podcast and she was just incensed. She's like, oh my gosh, she goes, I have the best moral compass ever. And I do what's right because of being inside, what's inside me, not because something outside of me is making me feel like I have to be that way. And
Yeah.
so that's really what we develop is we develop that human into really understanding what's right from wrong, the why of it, what to do. One of the uh, tips, or right in my book, is that you don't tell students, you don't tell your children what not to do. You tell them what to do,
Yeah.
right? And so they start to learn how do I live on this planet? How do I become a happy, functional adult, right? Rather than creating this adversarial relationship where it's all about not getting into trouble and punishment and hiding, right? So oftentimes when there's significant punishment in a household, children start to hide themselves. They hide who they are. They hide who their friends might be because they're afraid of getting in trouble or having that taken away. And so we really create an unhealthy dynamic,
Yeah.
right, when we use punishment.
It's interesting. Another thing around punishment just shows up in my mind because um, to not to not punish the mistakes. This is so important, I think, because as adults, we are telling now mistakes are a learning process, but we haven't learned it if we are punished for mistakes. So this was always stopping us, and now we have to relearn it. Why not placing just the right thoughts into our children? If we don't punish, a mistake is something to learn and not to get them back.
That's
So I
right.
think
That's
this
exactly
is
right.
wonderful.
If in most healthy relationships, right, we don't punish our friends if they make a mistake, right?
Yes.
I use the example, people have different sense of being on time, right?
Right.
And if you're going to dinner with a friend and they show up 20 minutes late, right? And hopefully you're not going to punish them for that. Well, you showed up late, and so I'm not going to go to dinner with you again, right? You're going to
Right.
pay for showing up late. Instead, we have a conversation. One, it could be, I was fine. I brought a book to read. Or, being on time is important to me. It'd be great if we could work out a way for you to be a little more timely when we go out to dinner,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And why not do that with your kids?
Yes. Yes. That's wonderful. I love this approach. So, what are you telling parents who might say, if you don't punish your children in any way, they cannot go the right way in their lives? What would you say?
Mhm.
What's your answer to that? I think it's a question that shows up.
It absolutely does. It's probably the most concerning, right? That it was my fear, right, when I started out. What would happen? Am I going to create someone who just has um, no boundaries, or
Mhm.
and really, like I said, it's the opposite is what happens, and I think it's because what I share with families is that children, like all humans, what we really desire is to love and be loved, right? We are social creatures. And so, because of that, right, we actually flourish. We actually do well in an environment where we feel loved.
Yeah.
And so, the concern that if we don't punish, they're going to turn out bad, right, is completely backwards, right? When we punish is when they turn out bad, right? We know, and this is academic research, right? You can read this everywhere, that the more a child is punished, the more likely they are to be a bully at school, to be mean to siblings, right? To withdraw, right? So by excessive punishment in particular, that's what creates behaviors. I don't want to say that there's bad people or bad kids. It creates behaviors that aren't healthy, right? That create even more conflict.
Yeah. So as a parent, we are supposed to give a positive household, a positive family, so that our children can raise in confidence and can raise in, yes, like you said, in love, really. And love is the one that goes further and that expands more and wants more and gives more. So this is a wonderful picture that you said. So
Yeah.
not to stop them through punishment and to, yes, to make it bad or to make it, yeah, stopping them from their growth.
Mhm.
I think this is
No,
wonderful.
and thinking about, you made me think about how, thinking about them as adults. And I think the other piece of this is that subconsciously people attract people in their lives, intimate partners as adults, that
Mm,
are much like their family of origin.
mhm,
And so if they grow up in a family that maybe one of the parents is very controlling,
mm,
right, and trying to control their behavior and have them do what they think they should do, they are more likely to find a partner who is that same way. And so if the way that you parent, you're really setting the stage for that adult relationship. Now, it's not always the case. Sometimes people go the opposite way, but it absolutely has been shown that it is a factor in the relationships that we have in the future.
mhm.
Just like when people say, well, why would a woman get into a relationship with an abusive man? Well, in all likelihood, that person had an abusive parent, and that's what they know. It's like, well, yeah, this is how relationships are. So I am
That's what
hopeful,
they
as I
learned, actually.
exactly,
Yeah.
that as I watch my children move into adult relationships, that they find people who are not punishing, right? And who build on a loving, compassionate, respectful relationship, because that's what they grew up with.
Yes. So it's a real, wow, it's a real provocative for parents to be aware what they are doing. How do you help them? What would you say to them if they say, "Hey,
Mhm.
I have no idea how I can change this. It just happens to me." It goes just like a reaction. Your child does anything and you just go, "Oh, stop here." And yeah, say words that are not fine. Use your hands or whatever. So it can go worse, but I don't like to think about this.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's just they are somehow they are inside of their body and can't change it immediately. So what can they do?
they can. So that's exactly, one of the things that I clarify when talking about using this type of parenting strategy is that some people think, oh, well, you're just wanting to make it easy on yourself, right? To not have to punish, that would just be
Mm,
easy. Just let your child do whatever they want. When that's not at all the case, right? Really, this strategy is about being present for your child and really helping them, supporting them in learning. And so, the first thing is to just make the commitment. And I just share with people, you have to just say, I'm not going to do it. And
mhm,
then you have to give yourself grace. One of the things that I talk about is that I shared earlier, you want to tell children what to do, what not to do, right? So
Yeah.
don't spill your milk, right? Don't put your glass by the edge of the table. You're going to spill your milk, right? You're focusing, and chances are the milk's going to get spilled because everybody's thinking about spilled milk, right?
Yes.
Instead, you have to say, hey, let's put your glass somewhere where it's safe.
Yeah.
Or, tipping the chair back. Don't tip your chair back. Instead, you want to say, hey, let's keep all four legs on the floor so that nobody gets hurt, right? What do
Right.
I want? But what's funny is when I started this, right, I would, I'd want to say don't. And
Mm-hmm.
I found myself like stammering, duh, 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 right? Because you want
Right.
to say that, but you're trying to catch yourself. So that's kind of the grace piece. Know that you're not going to be perfect out of the gate as you start this journey, but make that commitment. um, Make mistakes in the process, right? You may have to stop and figure things out, but really it's first making that commitment. And then, I think there's a few strategies. The one is to focus on what you want, and that's what you want to share with your child.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is to to use what I call observation
Mm-hmm.
rather than accusatory questions. So one of the ways that we back children into a corner and actually cause more misbehavior, sometimes lying, sometimes hiding what
Yeah.
happened, etc., is because we ask accusatory questions that make them feel bad. Like, are you the one, did you leave your coat on the couch after I've told you 100 times to hang it up, right? And now they're like, what
No,
do
I'm
they
not.
say? No matter what they say, it's not going to be good, right? We would just set them up for failure, right?
Right.
And so instead, just make an observation. Hey, you left your coat on the couch. Can you please hang that up for me? That's all you have to do.
Right.
And think of yourself as that child, right? In those two circumstances,
Yes.
right? It just
Would
you can see how much more effective it is to just say, hey, I see that you did this.
Mhm.
Let's address it.
Would you say that it's possible that you can add some emotions about yourself into this question to say something like, "Oh, I don't like this. I
Mm-hmm.
just feel I don't feel good if you just leave the coat always on the couch."
Exactly, because Blanca, what you're doing there is you're helping them understand why.
Mhm.
Why do I need to pick up my coat, right? And
Mhm.
so absolutely, right, is sharing with them, when everyone leaves their clothes laying around and I feel like I have to pick them up, right? That takes time away from me being able to do fun things. So
Yeah.
really the household runs better if everybody can just hang up their own coats. That's the why. And then they're like, "Oh, that makes sense." Right? They've never run a household. They don't know, right? So you're just helping them learn, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's a positive way to guide children, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
actually, my eldest daughter just told me one time, she said, "Mom, you never say we are not allowed to do this. But we always got a feeling of if I do this now, I just feel guilty if I do this. I can't do this." I thought,
See,
hey,
you've built
that's
that
you,
moral
it's not me.
compass. It's
But
so
I think
true.
it's a way to make them think what
Mhm.
are their values, what do they want, because if they feel guilty about something they wanted to do, just like a little devil sitting here and following, oh, I like to do this now. I think this is a good way to really balance inside of them.
Mhm. Well, and I think, one of the things I want to make sure I share is that, when I titled the book, The Gift of a Punishment-Free Childhood, it, I'll share the surprise ending, or is that what I discovered as I was wrapping up my book and thinking through my time raising my children, is that the gift is really for the parent,
Yeah.
because you are what it really did for me is it gave me a parenting experience that was pleasant,
Hmm.
right? Because I was building a relationship with someone. I wasn't having to try to control someone's behavior. I wasn't having to think up punishments. And I think, because I've talked to many parents, and I think one of the one of the most frustrating things for them is they'll say, I'm going to take your phone away for a week if you don't do XYZ, right?
Yeah.
Well, after day 2, they're like, oh my goodness, I wish my child had their phone because I need to be able to know where they are or whatever, right? As a
Yes.
young teen. And so then you're getting caught in that trap of an idle threat, right? You're not following through on what you're saying, and it just feels bad inside as a parent. Parents don't feel good. I mean, we joke about that expression from, many decades ago, right? This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you,
Yeah.
right? When getting ready to punish somebody. But in many ways, there is some truth to that, right? It's no fun punishing or controlling. It really isn't, because one, you can't control someone else's behavior. You have to help them learn how to control their own behavior. And
Mhm.
two, if you're in a punishment mindset, chances are you're internalizing some of that as well. So not only is this supporting a better childhood for our children, but it's definitely creating a better parenting experience for parents.
Yeah, that's great. So you can grow by your own, by yourself. So you develop as a parent too, grow together with your children, actually. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. So
Mm-hmm.
both can benefit from this. That's nice. Do you have a number one advice for parents who don't know how to not punish? So
Mm-hmm.
if they experience that their kids are not doing what they have told them to do.
Right. You know, I've shared a lot of like ways I've shared a few ways, right, of how you can support children when they make a mistake, helping them to learn, how to behave, how not to have misbehavior. One of the number one pieces of advice I'd like to share with parents, though, is for them to stay calm,
Mhm.
right? It's like you said, what is it like for you, and how do you approach a situation? And this is kind of like the stammering. You have to have grace for yourself as you're learning to do this. But if you walk into a room where you might have two children who are fighting over, I don't know, fighting over a toy, right? So let's say they're 4 and 5 years old. So they're pretty little, right? They're fighting over a toy.
Very
And as a
useful.
parent, it's hard to see your children fight, right?
Yes.
Because you want them, of course, to love each other, right? Well, if so,
And you love the
their
harmony in the
energy,
household.
their energy is already up here, right? They're angry, frustrated. So if you walk into the room and you're angry and frustrated, you're escalating that kind of energy, right?
Yeah.
It's only going to make things worse. But if you, before you walk, like, you hear them and you're ready to walk in the room and you feel yourself starting to raise your energy to be frustrated and angry, you've got to pull yourself back down. I pull myself into my heart, right? Stay calm, right? Be the adult, be the
Mhm.
one who knows how to manage your emotions.
Yes.
And if you walk into the room with calmness, you're already starting to shift that energy,
Mhm.
right? Because now you're bringing that in, right? And then you can work with them and say, hey, let's talk about this, right? Make sure they both have a voice. There's no bad kids,
Mhm.
right? It's just a conflict. How can we make this work? And really, another thing I learned doing this is it is amazing how creative children are at problem solving.
Yes.
I've had instances where I had children who were arguing over something or trying to figure something out, and they truly come up with solutions that I never would have thought of that
Yeah.
work for both of them.
Yes. That's
So,
wonderful.
the number one thing is to just stay calm, enjoy this journey, right? Because that will go so far in helping you help your children to be great adults, happy,
Yeah.
healthy adults.
Again, this seems to me be the role model to really know how to handle your own emotions around this. And if
Mm-hmm.
you can handle your emotions, your children who are just connected to you, they are able to get their emotions down too. So if everything is up, They connect to you and they can calm down too, because you are authentic in this situation. And I think this is always, if you can be authentic to your children, they will follow. What's your experience around this?
Oh, absolutely. Right. I think that, um, and you know, that's a great comment, because that's one of the other positive outcomes of this approach, is that children truly can be who they are, right? We know that every person comes into this world with unique characteristics, with unique passions, with unique desires, right?
Right.
And when you create an environment where they don't have to like walk on eggshells because they're worried about what's going to happen, or that they're always fearful that they're going to make a mistake because that means they're going to be punished, what it does is it opens their heart,
Yeah,
right? It keeps them open, and it allows them that ability to be authentic, right? Because when we are our true authentic selves, that's when we can give the most to the world, right? And to each other.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, it's I think this topic can go deeper, deeper and more because there are so many aspects. I'm so glad that you wrote a book about this and really to help other people, to help other parents with this topic, because here we can really make a change, a really
Mhm.
change of our society to go on another way, to really to open up the ways to expand ourselves, our children, the upcoming generations, because if they learn not to punish, they can give back to their children too, not to punish. It's like a little snowball that goes more and more, just if you look in the future, I would say. So
Yeah.
I
I
love
mean,
that.
that's my tagline, right? A new way to parent for a new world.
Yes, yes.
We really can create a new world as we build momentum with this approach.
Yes, and from the beginning that you started with this situation that young adults just come into the school and shoot because they want to punish, I think this has to stop. We are now
Mhm.
living in another age, in another time. I think we are not this from the old times before that this should happen. That I think this is a wonderful approach to say, hey, let's stop with the punishment.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is
Yeah.
your offer? You wrote a book, you said you do some coachings with parents, so
Yeah. Yeah, so my book's available on Amazon,
mhm.
and it is The Gift of a Punishment-Free Childhood. I can show you the cover. I have it right
Yes,
here.
wonderful.
Yeah.
What a
So yeah, would love to have folks go and check that out. I have a website. It's RebeccaWoulfe.com. So REBECCA. And then Wolf has an unusual spelling, WOULFE.com. And I have some resources there and information on my coaching and mentoring. So would love for folks to check that out. And part of what I do is offer a free 30-minute coaching session so that people can see if this is something that would work for them.
Oh, wonderful.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
So I like to encourage everyone to get on the website, to read what's there, to get in contact with Rebecca. So, and to, yes, read the book, because I think this is a wonderful topic. It's value for the future, it's value for our society. I'm so grateful that you joined me here on this episode on my podcast, Renew Motherhood. Thank you very much for being my guest here, Rebecca.
Well,
And
thank you so much for having me, Blanka.
yes, stay tuned on the podcast Renew Motherhood.